Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that if you're returning. How you doing? Grab your tea, grab your coffee, maybe a snack, and let's get into it, all right? Because what we're going to be talking about is an alert that I keep seeing all over the place, and people are like talking about it, all right? So there's this idea of a nuclear war alert that's just, trending everywhere. With this idea, because of India and Pakistan, okay, they are in a full scale world tied to broader new world war scenario, okay, and it's happening, all right, and it's stemming from heightened tensions and also speculative narratives as well. But it's like there's an all-out conflict right now, okay? And I'm going to give you the breakdowns, okay? So the India-Pakistan, okay, it has indeed seen escalations, hostilities following the attack on April 22nd of this year. 26 people perished, okay, mostly tourists, okay. India blamed Pakistan for supporting the attack, which Pakistan, they denied, right? And then this led to diplomatic fallout, including India suspending the Indus, and that's INDUS, Waters Treaty. Both sides downgrading ties and exchanging fire across the line of control, or the LOC. On May 6, India launched missile strikes on 9 sites in Pakistan. All right. And Pakistan, they administered Kashmir, not the sweater, okay, targeting terrorist infrastructure, which Pakistan called an act of war, claiming civilian casualties. And Pakistan vowed to retaliate, all right, now. And then there were reports of airspace closures and military mobilization. Now, both nations are nuke armed, with India estimated to have around 170 warheads, roundabout, okay, and Pakistan a similar number, roundabout. Pakistan's full spectrum deterrence, it's a doctrine, includes tactical nuclear weapons to counter conventional threats, while India's cold start strategy aims for swift conventional strikes. Okay. Now these doctrines, they raise fears that a miscalculation could escalate to nuclear use, especially if Pakistan feels cornered. Now, studies like the one from 2019, it warns that even a limited nuclear exchange could take the lives of 50 to 125 million, all right, cause global climatic disruption. However, both sides, they are aware of what's at stake here. And analysts, they suggest that the nukes use remain unlikely unless there's existential threats emerge. So the escalating proxies and new world war, the framing likely refers to speculative scenarios where regional conflicts like India-Pakistan could draw in global powers. China, which is a close Pakistani ally, and the U.S., which has urged a de-escalation. They are mentioned in diplomatic efforts, but there's no evidence of direct involvement here. There's other global conflicts like Russia and Ukraine, which are Israel and Iran proxies. They might fuel narratives of a broader war, but there's no source that confirms a cohesive world war scenario as of right now. But there are fears that are being amplified with some warning of a nuke risk if conventional losses push Pakistan to extremes. But these are opinions. They are not facts, okay? So the situation is volatile, extremely volatile, with India's strikes and Pakistan's promised response raising the risk of further escalation. However, terms like full-scale war, nuke war alert, they are exaggerations based on available data from my digging, my research, okay? Now, when you bring in analysis, they both sides will note that there are incentives to avoid all-out war due to nuclear deterrence, economic fragility, and international pressure. Forecasts suggest a low probability of massive casualties, like over 1,000, okay, by next month, June of 2025, unless there's a rapid escalation that occurs. Now, diplomatic efforts by the U.S., UAE, and others aim to cool the tensions, but miscalculations remain a concern. So, as for like a skeptical take, the alarmists that are framing this could be driven by sensationalist media, geopolitical agendas that are inflating regional tensions into a global catastrophe narrative. Without clearer evidence that I can, myself can find, the New World War, that angle seems like speculation, piggybacking on real but contained conflicts. When you see things, please cross-check such claims against primary sources, because there's going to be a lot of fear-mongering in the next couple of months, and that will distort reality. But when I was digging into all of this, I automatically wanted to dig further. I wanted to focus on, because we are a military family, so I wanted to dig further into military moves, nuke risks, diplomatic efforts, and the broader geopolitical context. And I'll keep it tight, skeptical, and grounded in what's out there, using very public resources while avoiding fluff and unverified hype. All right. So let's start with the triggered event. On April 22nd, 2025, a terrorist attack in Pahalgam, Kashmir, took the lives of 26 people, mostly Indian tourists. India pointed fingers at Pakistan, claiming links to militants like Lashkar-e-Taiba, through Pakistan denied involvement. The Resistance Front, or TRF, claimed responsibility, but India sees it as a Pakistani front. On April 24th, skirmishes erupted along the line of control, with both sides exchanging fire. India began building a case for retaliation, briefing diplomats from over 100 countries. Between April 27th and the 30th, diplomatic ties tanked. India expelled Pakistani diplomats, suspended the Indus Water Treaty, closed borders, and revoked visas. Pakistan retaliated by suspending the Simla, and that's SIMLA agreement, closing airspace and cutting off trade. Pakistan's defense minister warned of an imminent Indian strike based on credible intelligence. By May 6th, India launched Operation Sindoor. That's one word, but sounded just like Sin, Sindoor, hitting 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir, with missile strikes targeting infrastructure. Now, Pakistan reported 8 lives taken, including civilians, and 35 injured, calling it an act of war. Pakistan claimed to have shot down 5 jets and a drone, though India has not confirmed these losses. A crashed aircraft was reported in Indian-administered Kashmir, but its origin is unclear right now. On May 7th, Pakistan's Prime Minister vowed a forceful response, and reports indicate that Pakistan is mobilizing forces. Both sides are on high alert right now, with airspace closures, troop movements, signaling potential for further clashes. Now, for military upgrades. Since their 2019 clash, both nations have beefed up their arsenals. India's acquired Israeli Haran Mark II drones, U.S. Predator drones on order, and French Rafale jets. Pakistan's got Turkish Bayraktar TB2 and Akhinci drones, and tested for 450-kilometer ballistic missiles on May 3rd to flex muscles. These new toys increase the scope for precise but risky strikes, raising escalation odds. Now, for the nuke risks, okay, India and Pakistan each have between 150 and 170 warheads. Pakistan's full-spectrum deterrence includes tactical nukes to counter India's conventional edge, while India's cold start doctrine aims for rapid, limited conventional strikes. A 2019 study estimated a 2025 nuke exchange could take 50 to 125 million lives and trigger a global nuclear winter with 17 million tons of black carbon in the atmosphere, disrupting agriculture and climate for years. Now, what were the triggers? Pakistan's doctrine suggests nuclear use if it faces existential threats, like major conventional losses. India's strike on Punjab, which is right outside of Kashmir, are a bold escalation, potentially pushing Pakistan closer to its red lines. However, both sides know the catastrophic stakes, and analysis peg nuclear as a unlikely. One side miscalculates or faces regime collapse. Okay? Now, the close calls. In 2019, U.S. intervention reportedly averted a nuclear crisis after India's Balakot strikes. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo noted both sides were prepping for escalation and the current crises. With deeper strikes and less global attention, it feels riskier. So U.S. what is the U.S.'s role in all of this? Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has urged de-escalation, speaking with India's, how the heck do you pronounce this? It's Jaishankar and Pakistan's Shehbaz Sharif on April 30th, and the U.S. condemned the Pahalgam attack by but they leaned like toward India, I guess you could say, reaffirming counterterrorism support while nudging both to talk. Now, our president called India the strikes a shame, but downplayed the crises, wrongly claiming it's a 1,500-year feud. Kashmir's been hot since 1947, and the U.S. wants India focused on countering China and not stuck in a Pakistan quagmire. So, China's foreign minister Wang Yi called for restraint, reflecting Beijing's alliance with Pakistan and its own Kashmir claims. And the UAE and Bangladesh pushed for peace talks, while the UK issued travel warnings for the LOC. Global powers are distracted by the Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran proxies, and China Taiwan tensions, leaving India with more room to act, but less like mediation muscle, I guess you could say. So the collapse of the Indus Waters Treaty and the Simla Agreement, plus severed diplomatic ties, leaves like no direct back channels, and Pakistan's economic woes and India's nationalist rhetoric under Modi, MODI, further shrink de-escalation space. And the geopolitical context, well, the conflicts rooted in the 1947 partition, with Kashmir split by the LOC, India's 2019 revocation of Jammu, and that's JAMMU, and Kashmir's autonomy fueled local unrest, while Pakistan's alleged support for militants keeps the pot boiling. Both sides have fought 3 wars over Kashmir, and it remains the spark, I guess you could say, for most crises. Now, the New World War narrative ties to speculation that India and Pakistan could become a proxy battleground. China backs Pakistan with arms and infrastructure, while the U.S. sees India as a bulwark against China via the initiatives like the U.S.-India Compact. Okay, however, there's no evidence suggesting direct superpower involvement here. The proxy label feels like a stretch, driven by global tensions rather than concrete moves. So, Modi faces intense domestic calls for retaliation that are amplified by hyper-nationalist media, and Pakistan's military, reeling from political and economic crises, might use the conflict to rally support, especially under Army Chief Munir, and that's MUNIR, to the push to restore credibility here. These internal dynamics make both sides less flexible. So the new war alert and full-scale war framing smells like clickbait to me. Like, if you ever see anything like that, stay away. Because current actions like missile strikes and LOC clashes are serious but don't match the scale of past wars. Both sides have collaborated their moves to avoid total war, and knowing that the nuclear and economic cost. So the New World War angle, it lacks teeth, in my opinion, while global conflicts like Ukraine, Middle East strain attention. There's no clear link to India, Pakistan beyond speculative fear-mongering social media posts. Okay, it's hyping a broader war, often cite with no sources, feeding off of anxiety rather than facts. Pakistan's credible intelligence of an Indian strike proved correct, but India's evidence tying Pakistan to the Pahalgam attacks remains murky. Both sides might be playing up threats for domestic optics. So let's talk short-term risks here. Pakistan's promised retaliation could involve counterstrikes on Indian targets or heightened LOC shelling. Airspace closures and troop buildups suggest a window for further clashes. A misstep like a downed jet or civilian toll could spiral really fast. Analysts, they see a low chance of massive casualties, like I said, more than 1,000 by June, if diplomacy kicks in. The U.S., the UAE, and China have leverage, but their distraction elsewhere weakens mediation. Both sides near with the nuke arsenals deter all-out war, but miscalculations are the wild card here. Now, long-term stakes. A prolonged crisis could destabilize South Asia, disrupt global trade, pull India away from its anti-China role, and Pakistan's economic fragility makes it less predictable, while India's emboldened posture risks overreach. Now, I know that you probably have questions like I have, like, is this going to turn into WW3? Will the U.S. get involved? Will the U.S. see war on our soil because of this? So let's dig. Will this escalate into WW3? Low probability. The odds of the current India-Pakistan crisis spiraling into World War III are very slim, like below 5%. Several factors keep this contained, okay? The nuke deterrence, both nations' nuke arsenals deter all-out war due to mutually assured destruction, okay? Regional focus, the conflict is rooted in Kashmir, a long-standing bilateral dispute since 1947. It lacks the global alliances of ideological stakes that fueled past world wars. International pressure, the U.S., China, the UN, and others are pushing for de-escalation. Unlike Cold War proxy wars, major wars have no direct take on in escalating this. Historical precedent, past India-Pakistan wars and skirmishes stayed regional with third-party mediation, cooling tensions. Risk factors, escalation could happen through miscalculations, such as a major Indian strike, pushing Pakistan to use tech nukes to offset conventional losses, and Pakistan's nuclear or unclear nuke threshold adds risks. Domestic pressure, Modi faces national demands for action, while Pakistan's military may rally around conflict to bolster credibility amid economic woes. For external powers, China's support for Pakistan or U.S. backing for India could complicate dynamics, but neither wants a broader war. U.S. intelligence in 1993 estimated a 20% chance of war, citing flashpoints like Kashmir or terrorism, but even then, global escalation was unlikely. So why not WW3? Well, WW3 implies global powers like U.S., China, Russia, NATO in direct conflict. India, Pakistan lacks this scope. China might back Pakistan diplomatically or with arms, but direct involvement risks its own stability. The U.S. probably prioritizes India as a China counterweight, not a proxy war trigger. Other crises haven't sparked WW3 despite similar fears, suggesting containment is the norm. So will the U.S. get involved? The U.S. is already engaged diplomatically, not militarily. Secretary Marco Rubio spoke with India and Pakistan's leaders, urging de-escalation while condemning the April 22nd attack. J.D. Vance was in India during the attack, reaffirmed the U.S.-India ties but avoided escalation rhetoric. The U.S. leans toward India, blaming Pakistan for failing to curb militancy, but avoids endorsing strikes outright. So the likelihood of a deeper involvement, The U.S. has historically mediated India-Pakistan crises, leveraging its influence over both. It's likely to continue pushing talks, possibly via back channels or allies like the UAE. So direct U.S. military involvement is improbable. The U.S. has no troops in the region post-Afghanistan, and Trump's administration is focused on domestic issues and other hotspots. Supplying arms or intelligence to India is possible but risky, as it could embolden strikes and alienate Pakistan. So the U.S. sees India as a strategic partner against China. A destabilized South Asia hurts this goal, and Pakistan's role in counterterrorism and its China ties give the U.S. incentive to keep it stable and not to push to the brink. So, what are the limits? Well, the U.S. hasn't played hardball with India due to strong Trump-Modi ties, suggesting a softer approach. However, distraction from the other global crises may limit U.S. focus. So will the U.S. see war on its side? Net zero chance, okay? War on U.S. soil from this conflict is extremely unlikely, like less than 0% chance, okay? So I wanted to bring this to your attention, okay? But if you feel the need to prep more as a realist, and my view, the India-Pakistan conflict, while it is very serious, is unlikely to directly impact us and our homeland beyond potential economic ripples or low probability terrorism risks. However, my mindset, aligns with being ready for disruptions, whether from this or another crisis. Basic preparedness is always wise. Ensure you have 1 to 2 months of food, water, and essentials. Focus on non-essentials, med supplies, and cash, as global tensions could strain fuel or food prices. If you haven't already, check your, everything. Make sure you are topped off on everything to secure energy reliability. Utility disruptions could hit during the global instability. Even if this stays regional, economic effects, oil prices could raise costs, 2019 study estimated a nuclear exchange could disrupt global food production, so prepping for price hikes or shortages is prudent. No need for extreme measures, though, like bunkers or anything like that, but bolster your existing stockpile. If escalation involves anything, just think about the supply chains, we could see shortages. Worst case scenario, food scarcity. That's literally worst case scenario here. Add seeds so we can garden. Long shelf life foods like freeze dried, MREs, water filtration. If you don't have your Berkey yet, if you don't have your ITEAL, there's a link in the description box. If you can't afford a Berkey, there's a link in the description box to buy another water filtration system that's actually, I think, better than the Berkey. Consider community networks, ham radio if comms go down. I'm just trying to think out loud here, I think we're going to be okay, y'all. I really do, That's all for this video. I will see you guys in the next one, You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Ciao.